Welcome to today's Value First framework session where we're exploring the leads trap and the Value First Humans Manifesto. I'm Chris Carolan, and I help organizations recognize and remove artificial constraints that prevent natural flow. Today, we're examining something that affects virtually every modern business I've seen: how a seemingly innocent database decision has profoundly shaped our relationships with customers and prospects. We'll explore how industrial age thinking encoded into our digital infrastructure creates mounting friction and the transformative alternative that emerges when we honor humans as whole beings. Now, before we dive in, I just want to remind you that we are in a journey here. Yesterday, we explored the AI replacement trap, where we move from viewing AI primarily as a substitute for human work. We move towards the fact that AI can multiply human impact when properly aligned as a collaborative partner. Today, we're talking about leads and value first humans. And tomorrow, we're going to be tackling the advertising trap, where instead of fighting for attention through interruption, creating mounting costs and diminishing returns, we're going to try and help you move towards enabling understanding and communicating much more effectively through value first communication. Now, for today, we're going to be talking about the leads trap. And now, if you've ever felt frustration of fragmented customer data, the tension between marketing and sales over lead quality, or the sense that something fundamental is lost when we reduce people to data points, this session is for you. Drop a comment if any of this already resonates, and let's dive in. Now, I started looking into this because I've always had a kind of disdain for the word leads and what the behavior that seems to cause when we're talking about lead gen, lead management, lead nurturing, lead, MQLs, SQLs, in terms of trying to build relationships like with human beings. So I was curious as to where this all started. And in the early days of digital marketing and sales, engineers needed to distinguish between people who might become customers and those who already were. Their solution: create separate database objects, leads for potential relationships, and contacts for established ones. What began as a technical choice gradually became something far more consequential: a fundamental belief that human beings in business relationships could be processed like materials in a factory. This mindset has roots in industrial age thinking, where standardization and mechanization transformed raw materials into finished products. But when we encoded this mentality into our digital infrastructure, we created a profound tension between how relationships naturally develop and how our systems force them to behave. Let me share an example story about a make believe Maria, a marketing director at a growing software company. Every month, she faces the same frustrating ritual: defending her team's performance in the executive meeting. Despite generating significant interest in their solutions, Maria constantly fields questions about lead quality and conversion rates. The company's systems divide people into artificial stages: MQLs, SQLs, SALs, creating a mechanical assembly line that fights against how relationships actually develop. When someone expresses interest but doesn't fit neatly into predetermined boxes, they become low quality leads rather than human beings with genuine curiosity. Maria sees how this artificial fragmentation creates daily friction. Her team spends countless hours reconciling data between lead and contact records instead of building meaningful relationships. Sales complains about marketing's leads, while marketing questions why sales isn't working the leads. Meanwhile, potential customers feel the disconnect as they are processed rather than engaged. This is the leads trap when industrial logic meets human relationships. Do you recognize this pattern in your organization? I guarantee you do. And if you don't, you might just want to look a little bit harder. What if there is a fundamentally different way to think about business relationships? What if instead of processing leads, we enabled natural human connection? The value first humans approach begins with a radical premise. Humans naturally create and multiply a value when artificial barriers are removed. Rather than forcing relationships through mechanical stages, we can recognize and respond to authentic signals of interest. Today, we'll explore both sides of this transformation journey. And I invite you to share your experience with the leads trap and how you've worked to overcome it, or even how you tried. The comment section is open for your insights and questions. So let's start by examining how the trap creates mounting friction in our organizations. And let's dig in a little bit more how it creates this friction. Right. First, it forces natural relationships into mechanical stages, requiring a conversion process that fights against how business relationships actually develop. Second, it fragments customer data across multiple objects, creating endless reconciliation challenges. Third, it perpetuates the industrial view of humans as objects to be processed rather than relationships to be nurtured. As digital marketing matured, the trap got worse. Lead scoring systems attempted to quantify human interest through point values. Marketing automation platforms built elaborate workflows to move people through predetermined stages. Lead routing rules treated humans like materials on an assembly line. Perhaps most tellingly, our language evolved to reflect this mechanistic perspective. We began speaking of lead flow and conversion rates and lead quality, terms that would feel perfectly at home in an industrial factory, but create profound disconnection when applied to human relationships. Not to mention when those humans understand and know that you're referring to them as a lead, MQL or SQL. Does this language sound familiar in your organization? Drop a comment if you've encountered these terms. The organizational impact now is profound. The artificial lead contact division creates structural conflict between marketing and sales. Marketing teams focus on generating and qualifying leads, while sales teams complain about lead quality. Neither recognizes how the structural division itself creates the problem they're trying to solve. Customer experience suffers dramatically. People researching potential solutions find themselves suddenly treated differently when they cross invisible thresholds in lead scoring systems. I know we've all felt that. Their experience fragments across departments with marketing communications, sales outreach, and customer success engagement, all operating from different data and perspectives. KPIs rule the day, and it wreaks havoc on the customer experience. Perhaps most consequentially, The trap fundamentally alters how we think about human relationships and business. When we start seeing people as leads, we establish a foundation of objectification that persists throughout the relationship, even after someone becomes a customer. This initial framing shapes how we engage with them as units to be processed rather than humans to be understood. Fair question from Ryan here. Uh, thanks for watching. Thanks for the question. In this paradigm shift, what gets tracked for the value first approach? Are you suggesting that pipeline metrics are irrelevant? I am not. And just hang tight. We will get there. Um, uh, there are definitely ways to think about this differently. And the value path that I'll highlight a little bit later that we went over a couple days ago highlights a way that we can think about this. As organizations scale, these costs that we've talked about multiply. Data quality issues that require constant cleaning and reconciliation. Teams spend countless hours trying to maintain accurate information across lead and contact records. Rising technical debt. From attempts to work around the model's limitations, organizations build increasingly complex integration rules, field mappings, and synchronization processes. Mounting administrative overhead to maintain the data accuracy. Companies hire operations specialists whose primary job becomes managing artificial complexity. Increasing complexity in reporting and analytics. Teams struggle to create unified views of customer journeys that span lead and contact objects. Widening departmental divides as each function optimizes for its own metrics. Marketing focuses on lead generation and qualification, while sales prioritizes opportunity development and closing deals. Surprise, that creates structural misalignment. And the hidden costs are even more significant. Loss of relationship context when converting leads to contacts. Critical information about early interactions often disappears. Artificial barriers to natural relationship development. The emphasis on processing leads through predetermined stages prevents authentic connection. Growing skepticism from potential customers tired of being processed. People increasingly recognize and resist being treated as leads. Now, what's the biggest friction point that you've experienced with the lead model? Here's what it looks like as we think about this in our orgs and things that we try to do to solve for this. So it starts with taking this mechanical thinking and bringing it into the technical architecture. Creates artificial complexity that requires more systems to manage. These systems generate new problems that demand more solutions. Each solution adds complexity that increases overall friction. The whole system becomes increasingly inefficient and unsustainable. Organizations typically respond by adding complexity rather than addressing the root cause. So we see more sophisticated lead scoring systems that claim to better quantify human interest. These still fundamentally treat humans as objects to be measured rather than understood. Advanced data integration platforms that synchronize information across lead, contact, and other objects in the CRM. And while these may reduce some technical friction, they maintain the artificial separation. Enhanced lead nurturing programs that attempt to move people more efficiently through predetermined stages. These often feel manipulative because they prioritize progression, the conversion, over authentic relationship development. And last but certainly not least, specialized roles like SDR and BDR, sales development representatives that focus entirely on qualifying and routing leads. This doubles down on processing logic. And these solutions all attempt to optimize a fundamentally flawed paradigm rather than reimagining the relationship model itself. Now, what I've come to terms with watching this, and we always talk about adoption of systems and CRMs, and like, if it was so integral, how could we still have salespeople, sales veterans, sales rock stars that don't use any tools at all? It's because they can only focus on the relationship management and moving people through. In almost no other space in the stack can somebody just disregard the whole stack like a salesperson, meet somebody, have conversations with them, get them to close, get the money without using any tools at all. Right. So it's not hard for them to feel like there's just additional complexity for no reason when we put these systems in front of them. So let's talk about a better way. The Value-First Humans Manifesto offers a fundamentally different approach. It begins with 5 core beliefs. Human wholeness. People bring their full selves to every interaction, their hopes, fears, aspirations, and capabilities. When organizations honor this wholeness rather than reducing people to partial roles or labels, they unlock extraordinary potential. Natural value flow. Value wants to flow freely between willing participants. I'm going to say that over and over in these sessions. It doesn't need to be forced or controlled. It needs to be enabled, empowered, amplified. Authentic development. Human growth follows organic, nonlinear paths unique to each person. Predetermined tracks fight against these natural patterns. Genuine connection. Real relationships develop through authentic interaction rather than processed progression. Intrinsic motivation. Humans naturally want to create value, solve problems, and contribute meaningfully. External control mechanisms often dampen this intrinsic drive. So, based on these beliefs, we commit to 10 principles. Number 1, we will honor whole humans, not partial contributors. We'll design systems that embrace human complexity rather than reducing people to functional roles. Number 2, we will enable natural growth, not manage performance. We'll create conditions for natural capability emergence rather than forcing predetermined tracks. Number 3, we will align with purpose, not just assign tasks. We'll connect work to authentic purpose rather than managing activity through mechanical assignments. Number 4, we will build genuine connection, not transactional relationships. We'll create space for real connection rather than forcing engagement through programmatic initiatives. Number 5, we will remove barriers, not add incentives. We'll focus on eliminating artificial constraints rather than building elaborate motivation systems. Now, these first 5 principles focus on how we think about and engage with people. I just want to give a very specific example, the one I just read. Eliminating artificial constraints rather than building elaborate motivation systems. Like it when we ask, how did you hear about us on a forum? Right. And for your own data needs, you think you need to like give them um, specific options to choose from, right? Instead of just being open text. When you give them open text, you'll be surprised at how much value you can get based on just creating the space for them to give you an honest answer that they care about. The next 5 address our organizational systems and environments. Number 6, we will support natural collaboration, not enforce teaming. We'll enable organic collaboration rather than imposing rigid dream team structures, marketing, sales, service, maybe just one customer team. Number 7, we will celebrate unique contribution, not standardized performance. We'll create systems that amplify individual strengths rather than enforcing uniform standards. Number 8, we will enable knowledge sharing, not control information's flow. We'll build environments where knowledge flows freely rather than creating artificial gates. Number 9, we will trust human judgment, not just follow data. We'll create space for wisdom and experience alongside analytics. And number 10, we will nurture human energy, not just manage human resources. We'll design organizations that align with natural human rhythms. Which of these principles resonates most with you? And in case you're wondering, all this stuff seemed very internally focused. Um, at the end of the day, we're dealing with humans on both sides of the customer experience. And if our humans on the inside aren't taken care of, aren't given the space to be awesome, it's pretty hard for them to take care of the humans on the outside and give them space to be awesome. So, when organizations embrace this approach, they will unlock extraordinary value creation. We'll see authentic innovation. When people bring their whole selves to work, they bring unique perspectives that drive breakthrough thinking. Innovation emerges naturally from diverse viewpoints rather than requiring special programs. Natural engagement. When organizations remove artificial barriers, like the example I just talked about, people naturally invest their energy in meaningful work, meaningful engagement. The challenge transforms from how do we motivate people to what's preventing natural motivation from flowing. Just think about the difference between those two questions. Knowledge multiplication. When wisdom flows freely rather than being controlled, organizational capability compounds naturally. Learning accelerates as insights move without friction. We see sustainable performance when human energy is nurtured rather than extracted. Organizations create conditions for long term success. Performance becomes sustainable rather than cyclical. And relationship depth. When connections develop authentically, organizations build foundations for lasting value exchange. Trust deepens, enabling collaboration impossible in transactional environments. These value creation patterns don't require elaborate systems. They emerge naturally when organizations remove artificial barriers and create enabling conditions. So here's the liberation promise for individuals: freedom from fragmentation, the exhaustion of being different people in different contexts dissolves. I now understand why I love the show Severance so much. Energy previously spent maintaining professional masks becomes available for authentic connection. Liberation from predefined paths. The pressure to follow standardized tracks gives way to natural growth aligned with unique gifts. People develop their distinctive contributions rather than conforming to generic expectations. For teams, we see release from forced collaboration. The friction of mandated teaming dissolves as groups form naturally around shared purpose. Collaboration becomes energizing rather than depleting. Freedom from artificial competition. Mm. The struggle for recognition, transforms into natural cooperation when systems celebrate diverse contributions. Teams amplify rather than compete with each other. Marketing attribution, anyone? For organizations, there is a release from engagement struggle. The battle to motivate people disappears when focusing on removing barriers rather than adding incentives. Energy naturally flows toward meaningful work. Freedom from integration complexity. The technical challenges of connecting fragmented systems simplify dramatically with unified views of people. Technology enables rather than restricts natural connection. This liberation doesn't abandon structure or accountability. It transforms both from control mechanisms to into enabling conditions for human flourishing and value creation. Now, let's explore how this connects to the natural value path and how you can implement this approach in your organization. So here we go, Ryan. What gets tracked? What does the pipeline look like? The value first humans approach fundamentally transforms how value naturally flows through your organization. It directly impacts each stage of the value path, from audience to researcher. Instead of trying to capture leads, you enable safe exploration. People naturally deepen their research when they feel respected rather than processed. By providing valuable insights without forced exchange, you build trust that encourages further engagement. This creates more meaningful signals of genuine interest than any lead scoring system could generate. From there, we go from researcher to hand raiser. Rather than nurturing leads through predetermined stages, you support authentic learning. When people feel genuinely helped rather than manipulated, they naturally reach out when ready. You recognize and respond to real signals of interest instead of forcing artificial progression. These authentic hand raises represent much stronger engagement than process leads. When you think about how challenging lead quality can be, when you open the door for this level of engagement and signal, all of a sudden quality goes up for everybody. From there, we go from hand raiser to hero, highly empowered revenue opportunity. Instead of qualifying leads, you respond to authentic signals. The conversation focuses on understanding and helping rather than assessment and scoring. This creates psychological safety for deeper exploration and evaluation, leading to conviction based on trust and genuine value rather than sales pressure. And we go from hero to value creator. Value creator, as a reminder, is my replacement label for customer. I think of all of these stages as the customer. So after they complete the transaction or the contract or give you money, we're calling them value creator. Rather than closing deals, you enable authentic conviction. Decisions emerge naturally from genuine understanding rather than transaction urgency. The relationship foundation is built on mutual value, creating much stronger motivation for successful implementation and value realization. From value creator, we move towards adopter. This transition transforms dramatically when built on the human connection rather than account management. Instead of focusing on retention metrics, you enable genuine value realization. Success becomes about human outcomes rather than contractual compliance, creating natural motivation to expand value. Quick example here, a company I used to work at had an order management team, right? And in the manufacturing space, there's not really such thing as customer success teams. Some leaders think it's a buzzword, right? Way different from the way SaaS views things. And but once I understood what the order management team was doing, I talked to that leader and I was like, what if we called you customer success? Because that's what you're doing. You're helping customers get the product, ease through the transaction, the onboarding, training, right? And while that seems like um, a nuance of the wording choice that we're using, uh, think of order management, again, internal versus external focus. Order management teams usually operate with the goal of getting the invoice paid, making sure the invoice gets paid, versus I think about customer success, that we make sure the customer is successful so that they pay the invoice. Simple mindset switch can go a long way. So from there, we see adoption, we move towards advocate. When people experience authentic partnership rather than being managed as accounts, they naturally share their success. Advocacy emerges organically without incentive programs because people genuinely want to share valuable relationships with peers. This creates authentic signals far more powerful than any referral system. And lastly, we move from advocate to champion. The ultimate transformation happens when customers move from satisfied users to active community builders. This leap happens naturally when organizations focus on enabling human leadership rather than maximizing account value. Champions emerge when their success enables them to help others, not get another 20%, creating exponential value multiplication. Each stage transformation happens not by forcing progression, but by removing barriers to natural human connection. The entire customer journey evolves from mechanical processing to authentic relationship development. Value flows more freely, creating better outcomes with less friction for everyone involved. Now, think about your organization's approach to these stages. Where do you see the most opportunity for transformation from industrial processing to natural enablement? And back to Ryan's point of pipeline metrics and are they irrelevant? I'd argue that MQL, SQL, SAL, like all that shit is largely irrelevant because of where we start, right? And I'm sure it's hard for some people to say, like, we only respond if there is a genuine signal, somebody raising their hand, right? That's the conversion point that matters. And then we focus on how fast do we get to that hand raiser, right? Instead of worrying about whether they should have raised their hand or not, whether they need to be qualified, whether they deserve our outreach, right? So when we create a bunch of garbage in the front end because we're just desperate for email addresses, of course, we got to create all these conversion points to make sure our sales team isn't wasting a bunch of their time on people who are just tire kickers. And when we know all that's up front, you're like, oh, why wouldn't we? Like, there's just so many people out there that we could be reaching out to. When you just switch it, then you know that there's going to be a flow of hand raisers because you let it happen, because you don't have to force it, because you're empowering people at the front end. You're giving them safe space to explore and the content they need to do it. You'll have plenty of hand raisers. And what do the salespeople do with their extra time while they're not tire kicking, while they're not dealing with tire kickers? They help with that front end of the journey and the back end. That's why we just create one customer team and be done with it. I could go on. Uh, Obviously, let's talk about some assessment and implementation. How do you know if your organization is caught in the leads trap? Ask yourself these questions. One, does your language include industrial terms like lead processing, conversion rates, and lead quality? Two, does your systems do your systems artificially separate people into leads, contacts, opportunities, and customers? I'm sorry. Like, this is a SaaS problem. So I know everybody answers that question. Yes. You just need to think about why. Is there regular number three, is there regular tension between marketing and sales around lead quality and handoffs? Do your metrics emphasize conversion rates and velocity over relationship quality? Do potential customers experience disjointed interactions and repetitive information requests? Do your team spend significant time on data reconciliation and system maintenance? Now just think about like clearly everybody's artificially separating people into leads, contacts, companies, and customers. And everybody is emphasizing conversion rates and velocity over relationship quality. So it's like, of course, like, why wouldn't we do that? Well, we wouldn't do that because of the other questions. We know there's regular tension between marketing and sales. We know there's disjointed interactions. We know our handoffs have always been terrible. We know our teams spend way too much time on data reconciliation and system maintenance. So yeah, maybe those aren't such a uh, slam dunk that we should be managing conversion rates and velocity. This is what I'm talking about when we get to the root cause, right? So breaking free begins with some practical steps. Language transformation. I know it sounds like semantics, but it's real. It's how humans work. Create a shared glossary that replaces industrial language with human centered alternatives. Signals instead of leads. That's already happened. That's already happening. Signal based selling, stuff like that. Relationship development instead of lead nurturing. Signal strength instead of lead scoring. You can do some experience mapping. Document the actual experience people have when engaging with your organization. Identify disconnects, repetitive requests, and friction points. Find immediate opportunities to reduce friction, particular at the transition points. System evolution, create unified views of each relationship, even if underlying systems maintain separate objects. Implement approaches that build understanding gradually through natural interaction. Ensure all customer facing teams can access complete relationship history and context. That's why we love HubSpot, folks. Unified customer view. Team alignment, create unified success metrics that span departmental boundaries. Have team members experience how other departments engage with potential customers. Develop reward systems that celebrate collaboration in building relationships. Now, these steps don't require complete system overhauls, they create immediate benefits while building momentum toward deeper transformation. Now, think about what's one action from that list that you could implement in your organization this week and drop it in the comments. As we close today's session, I want to emphasize that the journey from leads to humans isn't about abandoning structure or accountability. It's about transforming them from control mechanisms into enabling conditions for natural human flourishing and value creation. The leads trap isn't a problem limited to marketing or sales. It reflects a fundamental misalignment between industrial age thinking and natural human relationships. Breaking free creates value not just for customer experience, but for everyone in your organization. Imagine your teams freed from hours of data reconciliation and system maintenance. Imagine potential customers experiencing seamless, coherent interactions that build trust rather than friction. Imagine relationship development flowing naturally rather than fighting against artificial constraints. This isn't just possible, it's happening in organizations that recognize these patterns and take deliberate steps toward transformation. So I invite you to take 3 actions after today's session. First, observe the language used in your organization when discussing potential customers. Notice where industrial terminology reveals mechanistic thinking and begin shifting your own language toward human centered alternatives. Second, map the actual experience someone has when engaging with your organization from their perspective. Identify friction points created by artificial separation and fragmentation. Third, share your insights with at least one colleague. The recognition of these patterns is the first step towards transformation. Tomorrow, we'll continue our journey with the advertising trap and the value first communication manifesto, how industrial age scarcity thinking about attention creates mounting friction in our digital world of abundance. As we showed in the world map, we're exploring these trap manifesto pairings daily, moving from foundational elements through engagement approaches, systems, and ultimately environment and leadership. Thank you so much for your engagement today. Appreciate the comments, Ryan. I see those thoughtful comments uh, and questions and appreciate them very much. If you found value in today's session, please share it with colleagues who might benefit and connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like to continue the conversation. Until tomorrow, I'm Chris Carolan, and I thank you so much for joining the Value First Framework series. Have a great day, everybody.